So the last film that I watched originally premiered at TIFF back in 2023, finally got picked up and was released in 2024, and that film is Lee. So Kate Winslet, I feel like, is just having some incredible projects knocking at her door, and Lee was just the perfect adaptation for her to take on this character of Lee Miller. Lee Miller was a real life model at one point who then transitioned into becoming a photographer for British Vogue. And this storyline is just really cool. I feel like Lee's story and her personality was just really portrayed quite nicely by Kate Winslet. As far as the time period goes, it kind of gave me a bit of Saving Private Ryan with a little bit of other films that depict war, but Lee Miller definitely, I never really learned about in my history books. I think I may have came across her name in a photography class, but really just kind of cool how the plot line is spun out. So it's basically Kate Winslet or Lee being interviewed by a journalist, and through that journalist and her, she's kind of telling her life story through her photographs. And that's just kind of how the plot is pictured and portrayed, which is very interesting. But Lee really kind of was a spectacular force to be reckoned with. She ends up moving in with her boyfriend in London during World War II and wants to get a job at Vogue. Not too many people are excited about her trying to join in at Vogue, but an editor does kind of vouch for her, so she's able to get a job as a fashion photographer. And then as the war is happening, she actually pitches the idea to become a war photographer for Vogue, and of course UK was not too excited about her enlisting in the war and being on the front lines, so she actually went through as being an American citizen to have access to that. So she enlists and ends up being a war correspondent. And one of the cool things is some of the photography that she kind of started out doing was on a campsite where there were just nurses and doctors really helping all of the wounded victims. So she kind of took portraits of nurses and, of course, just kind of the real life setting of what was happening to some of those soldiers that were on the battlefield. And unfortunately, as a woman, she just wasn't allowed the same abilities as other men in the press who were war correspondents as well. But eventually she gets an opportunity to head off to be just firsthand out there. And so her boyfriend, played by Alexander Skarsgård, Roland Penrose, was basically her curator and painter. He was also doing some things with camouflaging items to help in the war efforts, and was a little bit distraught at the fact that Lee was going to be on the front lines basically, and her life was definitely going to be endangered. But moving forward, we've got Andy Samberg from SNL, who plays the photographer or photojournalist of Lifetime magazine. And he's kind of the main side character to Lee in a sense where they pretty much do everything together. And they journey through the German territory and really uncover some incredible moments while they're on this journey, just going on a Jeep. And through that journey, I mean, they are capturing some crazy things at these concentration camps, images that haven't been seen by the rest of the world yet. Winslet, as her character portrayed by Lee Miller, was able to capture, surprisingly, the first time napalm was used. And one of the things that was interesting was they did at the end of the film a side-by-side picture of Kate Winslet and the actual Lee Miller, but they were almost spot-on identical. Lee Miller actually ends up, after Hitler has been captured, takes a photo in his apartment and has a photograph in the back of a bathtub. So she's in the bathtub nude, and Andy Samberg ends up kind of capturing that moment of her in the tub nude, and it was just a really, really cool artistic art form, but again, very ballsy to be able to do something like that. But overall, Lee was just a great kind of historical film and really just allowed me to understand the richness of Lee Miller's history and background. I think that the cinematography was very well done. It came out beautiful texture-wise, and just really cool, again, just to learn about the history of a woman who honestly during her time wasn't able to get her photos initially published in British Vogue because they were afraid that it was going to be too traumatic for others to see, so it was only published in Vogue in the US. But her photography actually didn't become known until her son actually came across her photographs and ended up kind of publicizing them.